Hey there, this is Chad from Zombie Fight Shark. Welcome back to Too Many Plugins. This is the Ableton edition. We're discussing Operator. This is part two. In part one, we discussed the oscillator section here, and we just went over what the oscillators do. In part two, we're going to discuss the oscillator window because it's confusing. I mean, it's confusing for me. There's a lot of stuff. What does all this stuff do? What's it mean? Some of this you can play with it and you're going to figure it out pretty quickly, but some of it is a little more abstract. So hopefully we can clear up some confusion there. So first, let's start with I think most people who use synthesizers understand envelopes. I mean, it took me a little bit to figure out how they work, but this is not anything new if you kind of inhabit this world. It's an attack envelope: attack, decay, sustain, release. So attack, decay, and sustain is down here, and release over there. So I'm not going to go into the kind of, I don't want to say it's elementary, but this is sort of the big, if you're new to synthesis and you don't know what an ADSR envelope is, then there's plenty of other videos you can go watch and get schooled on that. So that's what that is. So ADSR envelope, cool, makes sense. And then you don't normally see this part, this initial attack, which raises, instead of having, if your attack, so normally what you see, you're going to start from zero no matter what. In Operator, Ableton gives you the option of starting the initial attack at a higher level. So that's all that is. It's not anything crazy. Then let's move this back. Then again, you can grab and move all these. You don't have to, however you like to do it. But your peak level, that's pretty straightforward. Starting to sound like a glass harmonica there. So I think that everybody understands that sustain level. So if you're trying to make something that sounds like a keys keyboard, then your sustain level is ultimately going to need to be 0. Otherwise, even if it's just a little bit, you end up with infinite really quiet sustain. See, you can look at the level there and see that it's just staying down. Oh, we forgot our oscilloscope. There we go. It's so beautiful. Okay. So if you're like I say, if you're making a keyboard, like say you're trying to make a Rhodes or something like that, then you want that sustain to be at negative infinite decibels, also known as 0 or nothing. All right, so time to velocity. Let's see if I can make some noises here. So there, I hit really hard, and you saw that it decayed very quickly. Now I'm going to hit soft. Does it make sense? Hit hard, and it makes it decay faster. Hit soft, and it decays slower. That's it. That's all. Time to velocity. How long does it take for that decay to occur? So that's what it is. Play with it. So velocity percentage. If you're making an instrument and you want it to respond to your different velocity levels on the keyboard, then that's where our little friend velocity right here comes in. So I generally tend to hover around the 50 to 75% mark because some things get too sensitive frequently when you get all the way up to 100%. But whatever feels good to you, and depending on what kind of keyboard you're playing on, that can affect that. Velocity. There you go. I hope that makes sense. The harder you hit the keys, the louder they get. It's pretty simple. You see it in every synthesizer. Keys. So what does that mean? Let's see. We're gonna go to a lower octave. All right, now let's bump up this key here. turn the velocity all the way down. So we get the same velocity no matter which way we go here. Oh, and I didn't mention velocity goes negative. So if you want it to be louder when you play softer and then quieter when you play harder, then that's an option. I've never really used that. All right, so I'm playing soft there. Let me turn this down, getting loud. So I've turned the velocity almost off at a 1%, and I'm playing soft. But so this is what key does. I get further down the keyboard, and the oscilloscope illustrates it really nicely because it's a tiny wave, you know. And so I'm playing the same volume level or same intensity level, and then I go up the couple octaves, and now it's louder. So what does key do? The higher up you get on the keyboard, the louder it gets. And depending on the patch you're using, sometimes that can actually be useful. You might make a patch that for whatever reason is really quiet on the low end, and then you get up to the high end and it gets piercing. So the flip side of this is it goes negative. So if you have a piercing high end and a really quiet low end, boom. Ooh, that sounds good. It's like an 808. Delicious. All right, so you get the idea. I'll just sit here and play kick sounds all day if I don't stop it. All right, so that's what that does. Let's talk about the wave option. We just mentioned it previously. So you have all these different wave options. All right, so and watch your oscilloscope. So sine 4-bit. Look at the little stair steps. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. Then sine 8-bit. Almost the same. When you listen really closely, you can actually hear it's a little bit of graininess to it, but it's almost the same. It's pretty close. Saw. And these 3, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, 64 refers to the number of harmonics, which we haven't touched on it. We're going to get into this. We were looking at the envelope section. We're going to look at the oscillator section next. But you can see as you go through here, saw 3, and you've got a fundamental, and then you've got 2 harmonics, and it's kind of a softer saw. And then when you go to 4, see it adds a harmonic. And now we go to 6. So we've got more harmonics in our saw wave. If you look at the oscilloscope, it's starting to look a bit more like what we think of, the little sawtooth, triangle-ish shapes. And we're adding more. And then I'm going to jump to 64. And boom, like there it is. You can see all of that. And now it's a lot like what we expect to hear when we're playing with sawtooth, or it's a lot like what I expect to hear. I don't know about you. Just touching on the other ones. So there's so this just to mention it, saw 64, and it's kind of you can see the harmonics fall off in volume. So the higher these are, the more prevalent that harmonic is going to be in the sound. So, oh, look at that. We got some weird high harmonics now because I just bumped those dudes up. And so if you want to play with like getting some unique sounds with strange harmonics, then this is a good way to get in there and just be like, I want to make some otherworldly sounds. They sound like tines to me almost. Anyways, so yeah, these are your harmonic volume levels. You can individually choose your harmonic volume levels. And as you can see, they change the sound. So pretty neat, I think. And I did not mention, so I should mention, we got 32 and we got 16. So If you're making a simpler sound, you don't want all that harmonic content, then you can go to, you know, 16 and then and get crazy with it. So, and a little bit easier to manipulate, and you know, get the idea. All right, so saw waves, got that. Understand harmonic levels. Saw D, so this is what made me think, that's why I went on the tangent for harmonic levels of sawtooths, because this is all of them up to the max. And the other one is more like whoosh. So if hopefully that makes sense, and you want to have a, like, what really, I guess this is what most people think of when they think of a saw wave. Sawtooth. All right, so does squares, and the same idea that applies here, where you've got 3, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32. So, and those are just emphasizing the different harmonics, and then all harmonics at the max level there. Triangle. So there's your triangle wave. If you want a sine plus some harmonics, then triangle is the way to go. Noise. So a little different. Noise looped is an actual sample of white noise that's looped. So it's, I guess it's technically playing, it's a sampler at that point. Noise white is generated by the computer. It's a random noise generator. So that's the difference between the two, and they each have their own character, and play with those, see for yourself. User, I think that was pretty easy to figure out. As soon as you start messing, you know, you select a wave, and then as soon as you start messing with it, it immediately changes to user right here. You got a little preview of your wave right there if you don't have an oscilloscope and you want to see what the wave looks like. There it is. All right, let's talk about this feedback option, and you can see it's grayed out. And so to activate it, it's not always going to be active. Depending on what chain you're using, it may or may not be active. So if I select this chain where all 4 of my oscillators are running independently, then each one of these has its own feedback channel. So and it's making the oscillator, I believe the technical definition is the oscillator's feeding back into itself. It's feeding back at a low level. So let's switch it over to our standard, our default. And then feedback, the only one that's an option on feedback is the top of the chain. And you can see I adjusted the levels, so I've got something coming into all of them. And it's subtle, and this is one of those effects that I've kind of struggled to get it to make sense, and so, like, it's not one where, you know, you just immediately hear like, oh yeah, it's doing a thing, but it subtly feeds the oscillator back into itself. Play with it, and eventually you'll land on something that where it makes a big difference in the sound. But frequently, I just haven't had it. I haven't seen it make a huge effect in whatever I was doing. All right, phase is a pretty simple one. You can see what it's doing in that little preview window right there. So let's say I'm gonna reset this back to the default. All right, so we're back to default now, and if I have 3 sine waves and I want them to get out of phase, because this can affect the sound in multiple ways. And if you have, if your sound is, if it gets quiet all of a sudden, you might have phase cancellation going on. So you can mess with your phase if you're creating a patch and it all of a sudden, like, or a certain note sounds like it goes wimpy on one note, then you might have some phase cancellation, and you can adjust your oscillators appropriately. So the right next to this is the retrigger button. So if every time I hit the note, it's restarting the oscillator right at the 0 point. If I turn it off, then the oscillator is free running, and it just picks up from wherever it picks up from, instead of restarting the attack. So that's another one, depending on the patch, that can have significant effects in your in however your patch ends up sounding. Let's look at the repeat function, and it's not always active, as you can see here, and I edited this wave to activate it, and it changes the harmonic content of your oscillator. And let's see if you can hear it. And so it's a little brighter, like from 1/4 to 4. So it's a little darker sound, 1/4. And I'm not gonna go into details of what it's actually doing to the actual waveform, but it's affecting the harmonics, and it's either brighter or darker. So again, play with that to taste. And now we're almost there. Oscillator to velocity. The harder I play affects the oscillator's octave, and when the Q is on, it quantizes that for you so that everything stays in, it doesn't go out of tune. So first, let's do it in tune. So if I'm playing soft, usually you don't want it all the way up to 100. So I was hitting the same 2 notes there, and I'm doing slightly different velocity levels, and it's changing the octave of the notes, and or changing the pitch of the notes, not necessarily just the octave, but changing the pitch. So, and it's keeping it tuned more or less. So when you turn off the quantization, you can tell that it's like when quantize is on, it's like you're hitting keys on the keyboard. And when quantization is off, it's like just having free reign playing with a oscillator fine tuning. So you want to make some creepy, weird sounds, play with that, because it's a one-way ticket to Creepiesville. And I realized I forgot to talk about loop back when we were talking about envelopes. So let's talk about loop, and we'll be done. All right. It loops, a time of the envelope here. So okay, we don't need this. Let's just zero that out. So that's 458 milliseconds, about half a second. Let's do a short one. So I think that makes sense in and of itself. Beat, it loops a 16th note. I'm at 120 beats per minute, so it loops 16th note. Let's see, or... And you can see it's not keeping it on, it's keeping it in time, but it's not starting everything with the same loop. So it creates some sweet little effects, I think. So that was beat that did that. Now sync keeps everything in time. So you just get a pulse. And all of this is playing off of your envelope. So you change the envelope up here and you're going to get a different loop effect. All right, so and last trigger, if you're doing anything with drums, you want to use trigger because it's really easy in Operator to have strange artifacts at the end of your notes, and sometimes you'll be making something and then all of a sudden you like have things hanging off at the end and you're like, where is that coming from? And you have to figure it out. And so if you were doing anything with drums, trigger is the way to go because it doesn't use the note off. It leaves the end of the note off. And that is it. We have touched on every one of these little things here. So I hope it made sense. We had to go through a lot of it quickly. But really, I encourage you to play with it. So you hopefully at the end of part one, you open Operator and made some sounds, made some patches using your oscillators. And now take those same patches and now go in and play with the waveforms and play with your harmonics, play with your phase and your feedback, and looping. Like you can actually make patches that are a drum loop with one patch that's a drum loop, just by messing with envelope and oscillator. So I hope that made sense. It's a lot to cover, is a lot to sink in. But thanks for hanging in there with us. Next time, we're going to talk about the LFO section of Operator. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Have a great one. Cheers.